George, host of the Locked On Kings podcast, joining us here on this Maddie McQueen Monday. How are you, my friend?
I'm good. Hi, guys. How are you?
We all right, man. We all right. What's the Niners would have took care of business, obviously, but we had a fun little run there, man. That was a nice run, so we're good over here.
I tweeted out before the game. It's now that the Raiders have abandoned me for the second time, it's a lot easier to have a rooting interest in the San Francisco 49ers, especially when they're taking on an LA team. So it was fun, kind of sort of being a Niners fan for a day, although I know Raiders fans in the chat and listening are going to probably want to excommunicate me. But you know what? Hey, we got Josh McDaniels as our coach now, so I'm sure everything will go great.
No. He takes a big swig of McQueen in the Violet Fog gin. Is that real? Are you excited about the acquisition of Josh Daniels? Josh McDaniels.
I'm indifferent, but I'm not surprised at all. This is a very Mark Davis hire. This is a very Raiders push the envelope or make a headlines hire, pretending not to care about the obvious baggage that comes with McDaniels. No, I'm not.
It might not be a bad one though.
Well, what baggage do you think comes on McDaniels?
Well, didn't he lose, like, if I remember correctly, didn't he lose, like, or have basically the entire Broncos locker room, like, turn on him, and they did not like him in Denver, if I'm not mistaken? Like, isn't that, or am I thinking of someone completely different? Because I thought that was McDaniels.
I thought that might have been something that went on. I don't remember exactly. But even, let's just say that is the case. That was a decade ago. He was a young dude. Maybe he learned from his mistakes. He went back under Belichick, learned some things again, and maybe in this second opportunity, he's ready to learn from that and improve on that.
Gruden's not there anymore, so it's already a step up.
Yeah, I'm really happy he's getting a second opportunity too.
Oh yeah, well, I look, I didn't want to go there, but we can definitely go there.
I just said I'm
definitely go there. Second opportunity for him. Looks like Bieniemy's not gonna get he's not gonna get his first opportunity again.
No.
Looks like Brian Leftwich not gonna get his first opportunity.
Hey, but at least Josh McDaniels got his second. Let's shift gears here because that will send us down a send us down a dark place. Yeah, that'll send us down a dark place. It's weigh in on the 49ers.
Honestly, it's probably still better than talking Kings. So I appreciate you going where you're going.
We're going to go to a bright spot here. We're going to talk Kings basketball. Who wants to talk about black coaches not getting an opportunity when we can talk about the Kings losing 6 straight games? We were just talking about Tyrese's 38 against Philadelphia. Do you think the offense, and this is the question Kenny posed to me, do you think the offense looks different when Tyrese Haliburton is at the helm?
If it does, only slightly so. And I think I've said this multiple times over the course of this season, and really it's been this way since Tyrese first came to the Kings going back to last season. When Tyrese is in the game, the Kings half-court offense is as good as it can be. When Tyrese is not in the game, the Kings half-court offense goes to absolute you-know-what. Like De'Aaron Fox, we know how speedy he is in transition. We know he's got that patented mid-range jumper that he's knocking down at a high clip. But De'Aaron Fox does not run a good half-court offense, and he has not at any point in his career. When the Kings were at their absolute best at the beginning of that season under Dave Yeager, why were they at their best? Because they were running in transition. What did teams do to adjust that forced the Kings to fall apart in the second half of the season? No, it wasn't just the Iman Shumpert trade, everybody. Teams were forcing the Kings into half-court offensive sets, and the Kings looked completely lost. I remember at the beginning of that season, Dave Yeager was messing around with rotations and messing around with tactics during preseason. And after the final preseason game, I want to say it was James Ham that asked Dave about going a little more advanced in half-court offense, or looking at a little more advanced stuff in the half-court offense. And Dave Yeager straight up said with a smile, we're not ready for that yet. That's the way I look at this Kings team when Tyrese Haliburton does not run them. They are not ready for anything beyond a high pick and roll and then isolation ball. That's why we see it time and time again, versus when the Kings had their chance at the game winner against Philadelphia. You'll notice it looked very different because the ball went to Tyrese and he looked to move the ball and they tried to run something on the perimeter. Now, it drives me crazy why they didn't attack the basket, because you're only down by 2, and that can free up a good look from the outside. It just so happened the ball bounced between two of the most unselfish guys in the NBA, in Haliburton and Barnes. No, you take it. No, you take it. No, you take it. No, you take it.
That was romantic.
At least the ball was moving, versus if that was I'm trying not to dig at De'Aaron Fox here, but if that was Fox's moment, the Kings have 11 seconds. 7 to 8 of them would have been Fox dribbling one-on-one, and then he would have tried to force that mid-range jumper, which most of the time he gets a good look, but it's isolation ball versus when Tyrese is in the game, the ball moves. The Kings try and run something. So to answer your question, D-Lo, that's the biggest difference that I see with the offense when it's Tyrese's show versus the Tyrese and Fox show.
In slight defense of De'Aaron Fox, that's probably like 95% of the league, too.
That's what the
Oh, yeah. That's a James Harden style of basketball, that like ISO ball. I hate ISO ball. And yet it's the most common thing you see in clutch situations. The difference is LeBron James, Luka Doncic, James Harden. They can hit those shots. Damian Lillard, he'll pull up on Paul George from 90 feet. He don't care. He'll hit that shot. De'Aaron Fox doesn't hit that shot. And I don't think there's anybody on the Kings that hits that shot at this point in time.
No. Yeah, I agree with you. I don't, you see it, maybe differently or better than I do. I'm not so quick to say that it's necessarily better with Tyrese out there, but it definitely looks different. And I like it. I like it with Tyrese out there. I want to see if they are able to incorporate that with De'Aaron Fox. Now, one of the issues with that is I'm not sure if Fox's skill set and the things that he does well combined with the things that he doesn't do so well, i.e. shooting the basketball, helps with the offense with him and Tyrese out there. That's my concern. Do you think that if Tyrese has the ball, or if he's controlling the offense or whatever the case may be, do you think that De'Aaron Fox has the skill set to be able to complement what they try to do when Tyrese is out there?
I think he does. I think there is an opportunity for the Kings to use Fox differently. Again, it's a little more advanced, and we've seen it somewhat develop over the course of the season versus early on in the season. All three of us were commenting on when Tyrese had the ball, Fox was in the corner, or vice versa. Now it seems to be they're running Fox off a little more action, or you're using Fox's reputation at least to give you something. It's the same way when Fox has the ball, he uses the 3-point threat and 3-point reputation of Tyrese Haliburton to not have to worry about one less defender. Like, I don't see why the Kings can't use De'Aaron Fox in backdoor cuts, even if the ball never gets to him. Backdoor cuts, cutting from the wing, using that burst of speed just to change something up, to draw somebody away, to shift the defense's focus, even the focus of a big onto Fox, so that maybe something opens up for someone else. These are just basic basketball things. Not like I'm a basketball genius by any means. This is basic fundamental basketball that you play off the ball that the Kings just don't really do. I don't necessarily put that on Fox. I put that kind of just on the Kings in general over the last 5-6 years, because that's just been what this team does. A lot of standing around. When DeMarcus Cousins was here, it was everybody watched DeMarcus Cousins do his thing, or DeMarcus would kick the ball out to Rudy Gay or Isaiah Thomas, and that was basically it. So, like, I look at what Ja Morant does with the Memphis Grizzlies, and of course we're going to hear the Fox and Morant comparisons until the end of time.
No, we won't. There's no comparison.
Yeah,
you're right. Ja Morant has left De'Aaron Fox in the dust. You're right.
Yeah.
But what the Memphis Grizzlies have done is they've surrounded Ja Morant with shooters, hard workers on defense, and Ja Morant plays well off the ball, to where even if he doesn't touch the ball, which is pretty rare, but even when he doesn't touch the ball, he's moving around the perimeter, he's cutting to the basket. He does enough to where you have to at least pay attention to him and keep an eye on him, which that's an advantage that the Kings could have with Fox and Haliburton on the floor together that they're not exploiting. You have two really good players that can be offensive threats, and you're only utilizing one at a time. That makes defense easy. It's like, okay, they're focusing on, or Tyrese has the ball, I'm just going to focus on Tyrese. Okay, Fox has the ball, just going to focus on Fox and go from there. And they'll dare Harrison Barnes. They'll dare Buddy Hield at this point to shoot threes. They don't care anymore.
Buddy's stats the last 5 games.
Woof. Woof.
Bruh. I just so happen to have them here in front of me.
Of course you do. They framed.
He's shooting 21% from the field.
That's high.
Oh my gosh.
18% from 3.
Still high.
And he's averaging 5.8 points per game.
How many field goal attempts though, D'Lo?
9.4.
Well, that's gone down a little bit. That's progress.
9.4. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's because he wants no part of this disaster that's going on in Sacramento. So he's just pulling himself back, or quitting as much as possible. But I don't care anything about Buddy Hield. I wanted to ask you more about Tyrese. You mentioned the offense being able to focus on one guy while they're out there. in not being actively enough involved. Is that on De'Aaron, Tyrese, or Alvin?
God, it's probably a mix of all three. I think the person that's least on is Tyrese, because Tyrese has proven that he's willing to pass the ball. Fox or Tyrese moves the ball too much versus I think it's also a work ethic thing. Like, we know that De'Aaron has a high workload already, and we know it's difficult to play with his speed and his burst over the course of 82 games. Like, I'm not trying to take that. I certainly couldn't do it. I run to my fridge and I'm tired. But I think you need more effort out of De'Aaron when the ball's not in his hands. He looks like he just coasts from time to time, and that's a criticism that I think we've had of him throughout his entire career, not just this season. Like, he'll kind of coast and go through the motions, and then he'll pick it up if the game's close in the fourth quarter, especially on the defensive end, right? We've seen Fox lock down guys in the fourth quarter when he wants to, but the first three quarters he's getting scored on left and right. And I think that can also translate to, like, cutting to the basket doesn't take anything really but effort. That's just an effort play. And then if the ball falls into your hands, that's where the skill of finishing around the rim, which we know De'Aaron Fox possesses, that's where that comes into play. But just cutting, moving, drawing your guy away, recognizing if my man is looking, and I think Doug Christie's talked about this a lot, if my man is looking at Tyrese because he knows Tyrese has the ball, and even if he only has this much of his vision on me, I'm taking advantage of that blind spot, I'm cutting baseline. And even if he does see me, I'm De'Aaron freaking Fox. He's not going to stay in front of me. Like, that's just things where I think De'Aaron could do better. And then Alvin Gentry, every coach in Kings history other than Rick Adelman, could do a better job saying, hey, let's do a little bit more than the bare minimum here on offense, which is what the Kings kind of fall back into. And I also thought, like, I think it was fitting against the Philadelphia 76ers. What were the Kings doing for 3 quarters that they were very successful with? They were pushing the ball. They were moving in transition. They were playing fast. As soon as the Sixers came back into the game, Kings started walking the ball up the floor. It's like, these are the brain dead things that this team does so often. That's like, it has to be a conscious decision. They can't just be this. Not everybody coaches. They can't just be this clueless. And we saw when Doug Christie was coaching the team for 5 games or however many times, you'd see him hollering, you'd see him yelling, you're seeing him push, go, go, go. Like, that's something that I need more from Gentry or anybody. But at this point, Alvin, he's had such a long career and been through so much. What he's going through here in Sacramento, I don't blame him for not wanting to stand up.
Well, the other thing about it is it's that part of it is 100% on the players. Like, we've been dealing with this since Walton's first year, I think, where, I was doing a different podcast at the time, and we would ask Rico Hines, and myself and the Professor Jason Jones, we would ask, are you guys saying, like, hey, slow it up or walk it up or be strategic when they're like, no, man, I don't know what's going on. We tell them to run all the time. Players coming here, nope, they don't tell us to walk us up. They tell us to run all the time. We just got to do it. Like, Alvin ain't no different. These guys are telling him to run. For whatever reason, they're just walking it up and not looking for opportunities to score in transition. And to me, that's when you do get a stop on the defensive end. That's part of the reason. You're always taking the ball off the net. So that's an issue. But when you do get a stop, even if the half court offense isn't this fine-tuned machine, you got to understand, all right, well, let's get down there before the defense gets set up. Let's try and get some transition situations, 3-on-2 in the fast break, open corner threes or wing threes or stuff like that. And they just, nothing is more infuriating than them walking it up and not looking to get in transition.
And that's where I think this team lacks leadership. Like, we've seen when this team is dialed in and engaged and on a front, they play that way. We saw it in the first half against Philadelphia. They play that way. But once things start to slip a little bit, they fall back into their bad habits. They fall back into individual basketball, and nobody steps up to snap them out of it. Now, I guess a coach could do that, but I think it would be a whole hell of a lot better for De'Aaron or Tyrese or Harrison or somebody on the floor to do that. And that's why we've been saying for a long time, this team has been missing that enforcer, that guy who's going to go up to De'Aaron, go up to Tyrese, go up to someone and say, hey man, let's get back to what we're doing. Let's play our game again. Let's stop with this lazy BS. Cause that's what the Kings like. It's hard for me to call anybody lazy with my lifestyle. But when I watch the Kings, especially lately, I see lazy basketball. I see guys that aren't trying hard enough because they know that at this point, at the end of January, we're just coasting until the trade deadline. And this season effectively as of right now with this team, even though mathematically they're certainly not out of it and there's still a lot of games to be played. This team is at the end of their season because they know that come February 10th, things are going to be broken up. Like that's the way I see. That's the vibe that I get when I just watch this team.
We sure about that? We positive that they're going to do something? Like, are we sure?
They better. No. They better.
Okay, because it sure feels like
not positive. I mean, we heard that, you know, we've heard a number of different things about things being on the table and, you know, they're holding cards and stuff like that. Ain't nothing happening right now. Ain't nothing. They just got beat by like 50 something, almost 60 the other day. And here we are on Monday. Nothing's happened. Nothing.
And what did I say, guys? What did I say on? I said last week, like if the Kings continued to wait till February 10th, they could find themselves falling completely out of it. And I think we all joked, "Oh, the Kings will find a way to win one on this road trip."
Oh hell no!
Lo and behold, here we are in New York to end the night. Anybody expecting the Kings to win this game? Hell no. Even with the Knicks struggling as much as they have, I guarantee you they've had this date circled for all season saying, here's a get right opportunity. Who's going to step up? Is it going to be RJ Barrett? Is it going to be Julius Randle? Or is it going to be some obscure name that's going to come out in the Madison Square Garden and put up 30 because they know that they're not going to face a lick of defense? Like, that's why I was concerned. The longer McNair waits, the more the Kings have fallen out of it. So much so, guys, that I mean, I've been talking to you all season long about I want to swing for the fences move. Swing for the fences. Swing for the fences. Been calling for it all season. At this point in time, I think that window is closed. Like, if you can still swing for the fences, but not mortgage your future to do so in an all-out win-now move, which is why I think it is smart that the Kings remove themselves theoretically, reportedly, from the Ben Simmons conversation. I think that is the right move by Monte McNair at this point in time. I think it is time for the Kings to pivot their attention towards this upcoming draft, pivot their attention towards next season, look at the assets that they have. That's why they've made Rashawn Holmes, Harrison Barnes, Buddy Hield, of course, Marvin Bagley, of course, available for trade. Use those guys, try and bring in, now this is easier said than done, but try and bring in hardworking 3-and-D type players. Hopefully add a draft pick to that, a top 5 draft pick to that, and then reevaluate what you have building around Fox and Haliburton next season. I think that's the correct path at this point versus a swing for the fences move. But McNair's got to do something, man, because this team you can't roll this team out for another 30 games or however many the Kings have left.
What do you think about De'Aaron missing in action?
It's fun to come up with conspiracy theories of the Kings are holding him out because the trade's getting done. They don't want him to get hurt, but I don't think it's anything like that.
So I actually don't either. Because that almost like that doesn't happen.
Yeah,
I know it doesn't. Like, it just that's not a thing.
But I can believe that the Kings are like, hey, De'Aaron, we don't want. I mean, you're feeling a little bit of soreness. All right, cool. Let's give Davion Mitchell some starting minutes run alongside Tyrese. So see what we got with that. And let's see if we can lose games in the process. Like, I don't think that's unheard of at this point. I just
can't believe they're consciously telling their best player to sit.
Maybe they're not consciously
but the other explanation is the best player is making the decision to sit, because what muddies this whole conversation what muddies this whole thing was Alvin Gentry. If it was a playoff game, he could play. Mm-hmm. Okay. And I think we all understand the context behind what he's saying. All right, Alvin, what if your team is in a downward spiral and they desperately need to get a win? Like, could he play then? Because are we not there yet? The point being is Alvin seemed to have framed this as if it wasn't a big deal. Mm-hmm. And now this not very big of a deal injury has kept him out of, I think, 4 games, and he's missed. Now we're at 7, 8 days, 9 days worth of basketball, depending on what happens tonight. That feels a little more than if it was a playoff game he could play.
Yeah, I think back to trying to find parallels and if there are any similarities with the Sacramento Kings. And I think since the Pete Youngman-led training staff exited Sacramento, we've seen, especially with Rashawn Holmes, we saw it with Marvin Bagley, we've seen these, it's just soreness, it's just this, that turns out to be more. So I'm not trying to get too far down that rabbit hole too, because that's pure speculation. And that's
but it's totally fair. Wasn't Rashawn's shoulder like separated?
Yeah, it was just shoulder soreness for a week.
And they said it was sore
until he was out for 2 months or whatever the hell it was.
Right.
Like, I mean, we've seen this before. That being said, if it comes out that Fox is available to play and he is choosing not to, that looks a whole hell of a lot worse than if Fox is available to play and the Kings go, you know what, take your time. Like, we're looking at Tankathon right now. We see that we're only 2 games ahead of the Oklahoma City Thunder in the Western Conference, and we're now in the 6th best odds, the number 1 overall pick. Fox, you know what, take your time a little bit, and we'll see what we can come up with here. While we also get a look at Davion. Like, I can believe that. I don't think it's happening. I can believe that. That looks a hell of a lot better than if Fox is going, you know what, it's January 31st. I don't need this crap. I'm paid this amount of money. But that's also not Fox's personality, from what I understand of him. Fox is not the guy that just sits around, at least from what I understand. I could be very, very wrong.
I'd be disappointed and shocked if it was the latter. I'd be disappointed, if it was something where, he feels like he could push it and play and, play 80% or something like that. And he's choosing not to do that. That'd be pretty disappointing, especially when, I get on here all the time and I talk about Monty let this team die by not making a deal and shuffling things up for weeks now. Going into this road trip, they truly were like on life support. The Kings were. If they wanted to come back home and have any hope of, any type of play-in possibility, they couldn't get swept on this road trip. And that's what they're facing. And if like we're talking about, if Fox is available to play, or if it was a quote unquote playoff game, he'd be able to play. It doesn't get no closer to the playoffs than what we had coming into this road trip. And I'm just going to assume that he just can't go. That's what I'm going to assume, because the alternative would be extremely disappointing. Extremely disappointing. And I'll also say this about the training staff. I'll defend them just a little bit. I'll stall them out just a little bit. We don't know what they diagnose. We know what the Kings put out.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep.
Like with Rashawn's shoulder, for instance. Like, they could have told him the whole time, hey, that's a AC sprain or whatever it was. And
that's not what was being told to
exactly. So I'll stall the training staff out on that one. I don't know what their diagnosis.
To the best of my prior to his run here on Twitter, I don't think Pete ever did a press conference.
No.
I don't think Pete ever had to go in front of the media, and if he did, he certainly didn't have to do it regularly. I don't believe he ever had to go in front of the media and address a player's injury. So this is an organizational decision to not tell us what's going on with. Clearly, by the way, if that's the case with De'Aaron, it ain't the coach, because this is coach number 3. This is someone else. Hell. It appears to not even be the general manager.
GM number 2.
This is someone else's decision, if that's the case with De'Aaron Fox.
Is there anything that the speculation of Fox's injury is worse than they're letting on, and because he's involved in trade conversations and they don't want his value to completely diminish any further, they're making it seem less than it is so that he can still be hopefully.
They publicly said he wasn't in trade conversations.
But do we believe that? I mean, they also publicly said that DeMarcus Cousins, that was a different regime, but they did say that DeMarcus Cousins wasn't in trade.
True.
And we know that that's smokescreens tactics to say, we're not trading this guy. You can't have him. And if you're desperate, now his value goes up a little bit. I don't think it works, but I think it's a tactic.
I don't think it's a smokescreen tactic when you tell the world your best player isn't available and then you trade him for Buddy Hield and a first-round pick or whatever it wound up being. Like, that's when you're trying to shut the water off. If you want to have a bidding war, like you could have had a bidding war. They went a different route. Honestly, I don't know what any of this stuff is pertaining to De'Aaron Fox. All I know is that it's weird. That's all I know.
Very much so. Very weird.
Can you hang out like a couple more minutes? I'm really not ready to say goodbye to you. Can you hang out a couple more minutes? You look great in your Tiger Woods red, like you just finished, beating Lefty on a Sunday or something. We'll step out. Matt and George will hang out a couple of more minutes. We'll talk some more Kings basketball as this 49ers Monday brought to you by Gilmore Heating, Air, and Plumbing. Right now, Gilmore is offering Niner fans a $49 furnace safety inspection. Just mention this ad. You get more with Gilmore. You get more D'Lo and Casey along with Matt George next here on ESPN 1320.
I shot an 89 on virtual Pebble Beach today, which is way less than what Tiger did, but you know what? He was with me in spirit.
Oh snap.
Tiger, since I really got addicted and fell in love with the game of golf, I really developed an appreciation for Tiger. And I just started watching. There's so many documentaries out there of just Tiger, like his excellence at Pebble. And I think it was 2002, like when he just dominated the field. And basically the commentators were saying this is not a fair fight. Like, I have finally started to appreciate the not just athlete, but the utter dominance of Tiger Woods. Like, people do not understand. It was not fair. Like, the man, he would step under the tee box and everybody would go, this tournament's over. Like, you could tell with one swing whether or not the tournament was going to be over or not. He could do everything that none of the field could do. So I put on his golf gear and pretend that makes me better.
No, that's what we all did. I mean,
it hasn't worked.
Tiger feels like Tiger. I sometimes feel like I said Ja Morant because I looked at that. Like, yeah, it's over. Tiger's like Mike Tyson. Like, if you didn't live through it, you probably you can't quite wrap your brain around it. But man, there was nothing like that level of dominance from Tiger. Like, Tiger on a Sunday in that red. Man, there wasn't nothing like it.
Oh, see, I think we're going to come to and knock on wood, especially with his recent accident, that you don't want it to happen when he passes on, like what happens with so many athletes. But there will be a renaissance of Tiger Woods appreciation at some point. Like,
well, I thought that happened when he won
the Masters.
The Masters,
yeah, when he won like there was like, this is amazing for the game, but I don't know, like, I don't know what I'm expecting. And maybe it was just because this personally happened for me over the last 2 years, and I want that to be shared with the world. Like, I always knew who Tiger Woods was. And before I cared about golf, I would tune in to watch Tiger Woods play, not knowing anything, not really caring, but that was also the back half of his dominance. Now that I've developed a love for the game and an understanding of what it takes to be just decent at the game, watching Tiger, studying Tiger, reading about Tiger, hearing people talk about Tiger is like, it's been a renaissance for me. Like, I've watched Tiger Woods documentaries, the same documentaries, like 5 times on YouTube in the last like 3 months. I'm obsessed with the guy. It's just completely obsessed.
That's kind of why I want the reports about Brady retiring to be true. Cause he's still like, he'll probably finish second in MVP voting. Like, walk away before people get to have like a different memory of you. You know what I mean? Walk away before people remember, like, man, if Serena can't get that one more major, dude, and it feels like she just can't. Like, her, obviously without the, all of the personal stuff, she's hit the pause button on winning majors. She's been sitting on needing that one for years now. And it's like, nah, I don't want that Serena. I want the other Serena who was dominant like Tiger, like, yeah.
Also, side note, I imagine one of you two have at least seen it. And I'm blanking on the name of it, but the movie about starring Will Smith, about Serena and Venus's father, was that good?
Yeah,
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I really liked it. Yeah, I thought it was very, very good.
See,
it's far less about Venus and Serena, and it's about Richard Williams.
And I'm a little scarred by serious Will Smith movies because I saw The Pursuit of Happiness once and it wrecked me. And I'm like, I refuse. There's 2 movies that I refuse to watch again. It's Pursuit of Happiness and then Radio. Like, those two movies just wrecked me emotionally. And I'm like, okay, I've seen it. I don't need to see that no more.
Pursuit of Happiness that'll get your tear ducts going.
Oh, Maybe.
And he walks by the guy at the end. The real
oh, does he?
Real guy?
I can't remember his name. He walks by, like when Will turns, when he's on the street and he's coming out of the interview, and he turns and he looks at somebody. It's the real. That's cool. The guy he did the movie about. Yeah,
that's cool. King Richard. Thanks, guys. King Richard is a movie. I guess I'll watch it. I guess
that's good.
They need to make a movie about Tiger.
I think it's long, if I remember correctly. It's long.
And now I'm starting to get obsessed with. This sounds weird. I'm starting to get obsessed with Tiger Woods' son.
Hang on, Maddie. Yep, that did sound weird.
He's so good.
John, pause right there.
It's not fair.
It's 49ers Monday, brought to you by City Center Financial. Refinance today below 1.99% APR at GoCityCenter.com. Ask Matt George to hang out here just a little bit longer, as we were talking Tiger Woods all through the commercial break and dominant athletes all through the commercial break. And, you know, there was a mention of Ja Morant earlier, and it's like, you know, as we're the old, gosh, it feels like an eternity ago that Ja Morant and De'Aaron Fox were compared to each other. Is it just winning that De'Aaron has to do to kind of, it feels like last year, you know, right before he got sick, De'Aaron was, ooh, watch out. Like they were writing about him. They was talking, like everybody was talking about what De'Aaron was doing during that stretch. And there was a belief that the team maybe would be a little bit better this year. And is it just in this year, it feels like whatever goodwill De'Aaron had last year, it's just been broken down. It's just been like just broken apart, whether locally or nationally. Is it just winning that De'Aaron needs?
I think it's winning as the guy for an extended stretch. And what I mean by that is, like, we saw Fox win 2 Western Conference Player of the Week awards last season. And during those weeks, he was averaging over like close to 40 points a game. The Kings were winning basketball games solely because of De'Aaron Fox. And then, if I'm not mistaken, either right before or right after is when the Kings rattled off their 9-game losing streaks, which is not Fox's fault. And Fox even talked about at the end of last season, he had a press conference. It was the first time we talked to him for like a month, because he finished the end of last season in COVID protocols. And the takeaway that I had from that press conference, he did it from his house over Zoom. The takeaway that I had was Fox shared, he goes, I understand now that I have to be great basically nightly. And on nights that I'm not great, I have to be good. And I took that and I ran with that all summer, because that to me was the next step for Fox. Now, he hasn't done that at all this season, because there have been plenty of nights where De'Aaron was just fair. And when De'Aaron is just fair, the Kings have no shot of winning. There's also been only a sprinkle of nights where De'Aaron Fox has been great, and the Kings typically win those games, which is no surprise. Ja Morant did it in the play-in and the playoffs. He did it in the regular season too, but he did it in the play-in and playoffs, and then this season has continued it. And on top of that, the Memphis Grizzlies are a really fun basketball team to watch. A lot of that is because of Morant. A lot of that is because of the hardworking supporting cast that is the right fit around Morant. So I don't blame Fox for that necessarily. But for Fox to get to that Ja Morant status, he needs to bring this team winning, be the guy on a good team consistently. He can't just win a Player of the Week award. He has to be in the running for a Player of the Month award, or he has to be a Player of the Month snub. He has to be an all-star snub, because unlike last season, like we were talking about, De'Aaron would have been an all-star last season had the Kings just been a good team. And of course they weren't. They were a bad team. This season, De'Aaron Fox does not belong anywhere remotely close to the all-star conversation. Like that is the difference versus Ja Morant. Is he a starter? He's not a starter, is he?
He is a starter.
He's a starter, and rightfully so. Like, he's exciting
which
to watch.
Means the NBA universe, which means the NBA. I just talked about them like they were WWE. The NBA universe. Like, NBA fans from around the league were like, "Yo, this dude is it."
Yeah. And that he's fun. He's fun to watch. He and Fox have very similar games. Fox has the Ja Morant level of explosiveness. When Ja shows more passion than Fox, which is why I think Ja is immediately more interesting to follow and care about.
He seems to invite the challenge.
Yes, he does. And Fox has shown that passion before. There's a clip of Fox dunking against the Pacers in an empty Golden One Center last season, banging on his chest. And we loved that moment for Fox. He did that in an empty gym. Where the hell has that guy been? Versus that's Ja Morant nightly. Like that, those are the differences between the two, because Fox has the Ja Morant level of explosiveness. We've seen him saw him get a tip dunk in Miami. We've seen him soar in transition. We've seen him he used to throw down flashy dunks all the time last season. Has he thrown down a flashy dunk this season? I haven't seen.
I think he had one. I think he had one big one this year. I can't.
Once against Miami on a Sunday.
Okay.
Really? God, I don't remember it.
Yeah,
it happened.
The break.
God, he used to throw down windmills weekly last season. He'd get a steal, get out in transition, and put on a little bit of a show. It doesn't look like. It looks like the wind has been taken out of his sails in that sense. And I don't want to believe, in fact, I don't believe that it's because the man got paid. Now he doesn't care anymore. I don't believe that is who De'Aaron Fox is. I think genuinely, and this is not an indictment on Kings fans at all, but it is an indictment on the Kings organization. I think his love and passion for the game is waning a little bit. I think he's tired and exhausted of losing, even if a lot of the losing is because of him. I see from the guy with the fun hair who used to wear a bandana, who would smile all the time, play with energy, burst every time he touched the ball, to De'Aaron Fox now. He looks like a completely different person. Of course, he's gotten older. He's matured a little bit, but I don't see joy in the way De'Aaron Fox plays basketball. And even Tyrese Haliburton, the guy that he was when he was drafted, in press conferences, smiling all the time. Even after losses, he'd smile, he'd tell jokes, and he'd give long answers. He still does that to some extent, but you can see the body language of Tyrese Haliburton versus when he came into the league. Sacramento has an effect on players, not the city, but this organization and losing has an effect on players. And we've seen that plenty of times over this 15+ year drought.
Yeah, there's also a level of relentlessness on the court that you get from a Ja Morant that you just don't get every night from De'Aaron Fox.
Agreed.
You know it when you see it from Fox because it sticks out. It's like, oh, he's getting after it tonight. But he just doesn't do that on a consistent basis. And that was something that was a concern even before this year. When people would talk about Ja versus Fox and all this other stuff, and not just Coffee Boy. There was a lot of other people who would say, Ja's a dog. I don't know if De'Aaron has that level of dog in him. And De'Aaron would just put up better numbers. And when he played against Ja, he would go to work on him. And, you could look past that. But now that he doesn't have the numbers, now that, he's left out there to show if he has that dog, and it's shown that right now he doesn't have it. Now, combine that with Ja going to a whole nother level, it's just a bad look all around. I do think winning plays a lot to do with it, though. It absolutely plays a lot to do with it. But, it's a chicken or the egg thing. If De'Aaron Fox brought another level of intensity and leadership to this team, would this be a better team? Right?
I think, yeah, it absolutely would.
He can sulk and be like, well, look, we're not winning, and I'm frustrated with not winning. Well, do you think if you were to do something different, if you were De'Aaron Fox, would you be winning more than what you are? I think so.
Yeah. And we've talked about Fox's leadership style, and it's been a criticism, his leadership style throughout his career. But we've always said Fox is a leader by example. Fox is not led by example this season nearly as much as he has in years past, nearly as much as he did last season, to where Fox would play with a style, with a flashiness, with an energy, with a speed that was to some extent infectious. Now, it wouldn't force everybody to buckle down on the defensive end or anything like that. But when your star is getting the ball off of an outlet pass and choosing to only go 50% up the floor, what the hell is the motivation for Rashawn Holmes or Marvin Bagley or Harrison Barnes or anybody to sprint up the floor? I haven't seen the leadership growth from Fox as a talker, although we've seen moments of him speaking with Tyrese and things like that. And I haven't seen leadership from Fox by example nearly as much this season as I've seen last season. And that is one of the more concerning things to me, especially as your franchise guy that is paid max money.
Knicks tonight, Nets Wednesday, Warriors Thursday. That's 9.
9, baby.
I just want to point out that's 9.
That's 9.
Do you think the Kings can get any of those 3? And who's the 10th game? Is the 10th game Oklahoma City?
Yeah, it's OKC.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So it'll be 10.
That's fantastic. Only if Oklahoma City is without all of their best players.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Well, SGA gonna be out for a couple weeks.
That's right. There you go.
So Kings lost.
10,
Kings
10
for
on,
sure lost.
10 on the horizon.
Yeah, D'Lo, the way that, with the exception of the Philly game, the Kings have been playing the worst basketball that I have watched in a long time. Like from getting there, who did they play before Atlanta that they got absolutely hosed by? Boston. They get destroyed by Boston. Then they come out and play one good quarter, kinda, against Atlanta.
Yeah, they played a good first quarter.
Yeah, they played a good first quarter against Atlanta. They were up 12 at one point. I remember because I did an interview with my guy Koo from Locked On Pistons, and he and I were discussing the possibility of a Jeremy Grant trade. So I wasn't really paying attention to the game. I saw the Kings were up 12 when I started the interview. When the interview ended, the Kings were down 30.
Right.
And I was like, what the hell happened? But I was not surprised by, like, the Kings have played horrible basketball consistently on this road trip.
Mm-hmm.
The Philadelphia game has been the outlier, which is sad. So they have to prove to me that what they've been doing recently, with or without De'Aaron Fox, isn't who they are. Because this team looks like a team that February 10th isn't the trade deadline. February 10th is the end of the season. February 10th looks like spring break for these guys, and they're just trying to get to Cancun. That is the way that this team is playing right now. And so, do I have any faith in them beating the Knicks tonight? Hell no. The Nets? Hell no. The Warriors? Hell no. They might show up in 2 out of those 3 games because they're playing good teams. They're not going to win them. Like, a 9-game losing streak is legit. And so is 10, really. So is 10.
So that's the sad part. Is 10 is like, I can see it.
Yeah. I asked you this before, and I'm continuing to check the polls. Is there anything that, just as a fan, that you get excited to watch when you see Kings basketball? I asked the question because I'm starting to feel that way a little bit about Tyrese Haliburton, and more specifically, the backcourt of Haliburton and Mitchell. I want to see what that looks like on a nightly basis, and if they can build something. I don't know if that's going to be the future or none. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I want to see what they look like together out there. And when Fox comes back, I love to see just those 3, interchange with each other.
Yeah, the only remote tiny bit of interest that I have in tonight's Kings game, there's 2 things. Number 1 is Davion Mitchell starting again, because I think he's looked good with starter minutes. Now, is that sustainable? Who knows? Number 2 is how Julius Randle plays, and if there is any interest in the Kings going after Julius Randle. And I actually just had a conversation with the host of the Locked On Knicks podcast. That conversation is dropping on tonight's pod after the game, because I think there is a possibility that the Kings could land Randle without trading away Fox or Haliburton and adding him to the core. Now, how much would that cost in future assets? It's probably not worth it. And I know Kings fans, from the response that I got on social media when I brought up that conversation, a lot of Kings fans were not excited by the idea. But
that's trash. I love Julius Randle.
Yeah, there's a great, there is a legitimate, from talking to these guys, not that they're established Knicks insiders, but they know the team and they understand the market. Like, Knicks are very ready to move on from Randle. Randle looks about as checked out as he can be with that Knicks team. And I don't think.
Well, I'm just going to say, Matt and Damian, Kenny Horowitz, you had a New York insider who told you this, guys. I told you this about a month ago.
We'll ignore the entire show that I did when Kenny was gone. That was centered around Julius Randle. You're right, Kenny. You nailed it, buddy. Good job. That podcast is out now, you said?
No, it drops tonight after the game.
Okay.
So we have an extended conversation specifically about Randle, and then there will be a segment talking about whatever the hell that happens with the Kings on the actual floor tonight. But I think that conversation, that part's whatever. But I think Julius Randle's a legitimate target, so I want to see what Randle looks like, because I think he could be a potential good fit for that core. He could be one of those exciting acquisitions that doesn't make the Kings so much better this season that it takes them out of a top draft pick, but next season sets them up for potentially something really good with the addition of a draft pick with that group. And at the same time, it's a massive financial investment because Randle's being paid over the next 4 years. Fox is being paid over the next 4 years. You got to pay Haliburton at some point. So there's a lot of conversation there, but I'm watching for Randle a little bit tonight too.
We'll tune into that real quick, KC, before
I want to give just a quick hot take a little bit before this.
Okay.
I feel like Julius Randle is more Chris Webber in 99 than people trying to say Ben Simmons was Chris Webber in 99.
People were saying Ben Simmons was Chris Webber 99? As in the kind of move or the
Kind
personality?
of move. You're getting a young, disgruntled guy, that has a bad reputation coming in. People try to label that for Ben Simmons. I think Julius Randle is more that than Ben Simmons is.
So before can I give the news now? De'Aaron Fox is out again tonight.
All right, we'll get to see Davion Mitchell, James.
So that's 5 games with left ankle soreness.
So will it drop tomorrow that he has a torn something or another, or will we just find out by talking to him on the street?
I mean, are
not sure it'll ever drop.
So other cities don't have doctors? Like I'm like, we can't get an official update until he returns home. This is weird, dude. I don't know what to say. Like it's an injury no one can pinpoint. This is weird, dude. I wish I had a stronger take. This is strange. De'Aaron Fox will miss his 5th straight game, according to Alvin Gentry. Of course, we just got that tweet from James Ham, who's going to join us here in a couple minutes. All right. Matty Ice will be locked in, no pun intended, to the Locked On Kings podcast tonight. We appreciate you. Thanks for hanging out a little bit extra longer, man. We appreciate it.
Anytime, guys.